Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. President-elect Donald Trump's team has just announced its nominees for the posts of Secretaries of Defence, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. They are Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defence, Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor. Now these three gentlemen are going to be key advisors to President Trump on defense and national security for the next 4 years. And very interestingly, all of these appointees are hawks on China and they're friends of India. What do these appointments mean for India? Joining me to discuss this are Sachdeva, President of the Imagindia Institute, former Indian Diplomat Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, and Manish Chand, senior journalist. And in the studio I have with me my colleague R Sridharan, TV9's foreign editor. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show. Sri, I want to start by asking you this. I was just looking at the average age of Team Trump's national security and foreign policy team. Yeah, 49 years, that's how old the team is.
Absolutely.
One of the youngest teams like this that we've probably seen in all of the US government, in all of these decades.
That's true.
Trump is gone for youth.
Absolutely. Youth and also the same time experience. Sandeep, let us not forget that all these people who've been put in these jobs have actual experience of their departments.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, he's the first Green Beret, Mike Waltz, is going to be the NSA.
Right. He's a major. He was a major in the and not a general. Normally he would go for like a general or an admiral or something in the team, the first term, right? Mike Flynn.
So
general.
Not just young, but people who actually know what they're talking about. So I think that bodes very well for Team Trump.
Yes.
And for India, I think it's great because Mike Waltz is also the head of the India caucus in the Congress.
Yes.
And his position on China is well established, and it's been known for years now.
Yes.
He's spoken about the systematic espionage that happens, in colleges via Chinese students.
Yes.
He's talked about the origin of COVID and how China has hushed it up. He's talked about the threat that China poses to in the Indo-Pacific region.
Yes.
So I think that's a good name from Indian perspective to have as the NSA. Advising Trump on his geopolitical strategy as far as this part of the world is concerned.
Right, absolutely. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, we are looking at these names that Team Trump has put out for its NSA, SecDef and Foreign Secretary, a very young team. Very interesting because all of these gentlemen are China hawks. When it comes to Beijing, they're very clear in, of course, USA first, but they're very, very hawkish on China. How would you be looking at these appointments, particularly when these are the three gentlemen who will also be dealing with NSA, Ajit Doval, Foreign Minister Jaishankar and Rajnath Singh?
Well, Waltz is considered particularly hawkish in China.
Yes.
And I recall that he had called for a US boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing.
Right.
And he did so because of Beijing's alleged involvement. And in fact, it's more than alleged now, it was proven in the origin of COVID-19.
Right.
He was also not happy about the mistreatment of the Uyghur Muslims.
Right.
And on several occasions, he had reiterated the importance of India to the United States.
Right.
In fact, as you mentioned in your introductory remarks, he was the co-chair of the India caucus in the US Congress.
Right.
And he had always advocated warmth with India. He had advocated closeness with India. And frankly, I think he was one of the people who was involved in the organization of Prime Minister Modi's address to the US Congress when the Prime Minister visited the United States last year. And there was a lot of perceptible warmth in the manner in which he met Prime Minister Modi.
Absolutely, yes.
I may also mention that Waltz had traveled to take part in the Independence Day celebrations last year. And he was full of praise for Prime Minister Modi.
Right.
I may also note with some degree of this is very important. He had said that Justin Trudeau's government is going to fade away.
Right.
So he is in sync with many of our own foreign policy interests.
Interesting.
Similarly,
Yes.
Marco Rubio
Yes.
has advocated a muscular foreign policy regarding China,
Right.
Iran, of course, Cuba. He is a strong supporter of the India-US partnership.
Yes.
And in July this year, Rubio had introduced the US-India Defence Cooperation Act
Right.
to expand bilateral cooperation with India, which he felt needed such cooperation because of the aggression from Beijing. So
Right.
these are particularly striking facts about these two very significant, likely appointees to the Trump cabinet.
Right,
Of
absolutely,
course,
yes.
the defense secretary's name is also very significant.
Yes.
But he is a news anchor.
Right.
And I don't think he has any first-hand experience of administrative responsibilities.
Yes.
But nonetheless, the fact that he's so close
Right.
to President-elect Trump
Yes.
would give him the necessary wherewithal and the confidence to deal with his responsibilities.
Yes, yes, absolutely, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. And the fact is that, Pete Hegseth is someone whose appointment I've looked at with, very closely, because I look at the military and defense. And, it's almost like John Rambo being appointed as Secretary of Defence, Sri, He's like a Green Beret. He's had several years of service in the US military. And a Green Beret is like literally the cutting edge of the US military.
True.
And, appointing someone like that tells you so much about what Team Trump is up to. But Robin Sachdeva, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal brought out this fact that it's really good for India. All of these three appointees who are going to be meeting our NSA, our defense minister and our foreign minister, they're all pro-India, anti-China. Where does this really play out, when it comes to US policy? What is the kind of heft that these three officials have when President Trump is going to decide his China policy?
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be with you, and a pleasure to also see Shri. I think I'm seeing him after years and years and years, and also Manish, very old-time people, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now, the way I see it, one, when you started your program, you said for the next 4 years. Firstly,
Yes.
knowing Trump's track record, we cannot be sure that everyone will last 4 years, but yes, the next 4 years or several years, definitely yes.
Yes.
Secondly, what's happening this time around, he is building a very cohesive team
Right.
as per what he wants.
Yes.
The previous administration in 17, when he assumed office, he was kind of a novice.
Right.
And, mainstream Republicans kind of pushed him and,
Yes.
got him to hire traditional conservative Republicans.
Right.
He hired many judges from the Federalist Society and all. Later on, he was very unhappy with them.
Yes.
So this time around, he is going ahead fresh. Doesn't need to bow to any traditional conservative Republicans.
Right.
He is building a team as he wants, where he wants to pick. Thirdly, so he has a much more free hand and a cohesive team that he's
Right.
building. One more point as to these gentlemen who are there, and of course, ultimately it's in Trump's image he has them.
Yes.
As you're saying, they are hawks.
Yes.
They are maybe not warriors.
Right.
They're negotiators, hard, will negotiate, but they're not fighters.
Right.
And similarly for Trump, in fact,
Explain the
there was-
difference. Robin Sachdeva, explain this difference for us. What's the difference between being a hawk and, being a fighter or a warrior?
Okay, I would
Or
frame
a
it in the
negotiator,
context
yes.
of, sure, exactly. I would frame it in the context of what Steve Bannon has been saying often, and there's a school of thought,
Right.
that Trump is a negotiator.
Right.
He will come down hard with China, he'll negotiate, he'll make a deal.
Right.
But he will not go to war against China.
Right. He's very
Okay.
clear on that. He said, "I'm not the president who starts war. I only end those wars."
Exactly. So if there is a thought that America sometime would need to, with muscle, go to war against China, that
Yes.
will not happen. Okay, so within that constraint, yes, these are hawks, and they will, definitely guide American foreign policy in a cohesive sense.
Yes.
And they're all beholden to Trump. I mean,
Right.
right now, it's all Trumpotopia. It's the world of Trump, it's the church of Trump.
Yes,
So he
yes,
can pick as a
absolutely.
fly and replace. And lastly, Reagan had said once that,
Yes.
the personnel is the policy, right?
Yes.
So it indicates to us that each person, as you are analyzing now, what's their
Yes.
background, where do they come from, as ambassador was also looking at. So
Yes.
looking at their, at their persona, their previous, statements, their stances, what they've done and all,
Yes.
we can get a fair idea as to what each of these individuals will do.
Absolutely. Personnel is policy, Sri.
Yeah. So, Sandeep, 2 points here. One,
Right.
if under the Joe Biden administration,
Yes.
India became a strategic partner,
Yes.
it was by default because
Right.
there was a geopolitical shift happening.
Yes.
What I expect under the Trump administration is India becoming important by design,
Right.
not by default.
Right.
Because very clearly, the focus, Trump is very clear.
Yes.
He wants to shift his focus from Europe and to this part of the world and
China,
make
yes.
countering and containing China their
Yes.
priority.
Yes.
So I think there is no other nation
Right.
with a similar heft
Right.
which can actually be a force, which can be an ally
Yes.
in doing this. And we have our own issues with China, which have been sorted out,
Right.
recently to some extent.
The small issues.
Small issues, yeah. So that is number one.
Yes.
Number two is, when people talk about that Trump will bring about isolationism
Right.
in U.S. foreign policy, I think if you look at the appointments which he
Yes.
has made, I don't think it really indicates that any kind of isolationism.
Right.
It is probably, what it indicates to my mind is a repurposing or refocusing
Yes.
of American priorities.
Right.
I think one of the biggest losers will probably
Yes.
be Europe,
Right.
where Trump has very clearly said that, don't expect us to pay your bills or protect
Exactly.
you.
Yes.
I think you need to pay for your own bill and for everything.
Right.
And in fact, he said that if Russia wants to do whatever he wants to do to Ukraine, he's welcome.
Yes.
Right. So there is going to be a reframing of the geopolitical importance in the White House.
Yes.
And that will see India becoming very significant.
Very, very
ally.
important observation, Sri. And in fact, Trump has all along said that they were fighting the wrong war. And in fact, they kind of drove China and Russia together.
Right.
The Biden administration, he says, they did that. And I think one of the prime focus areas, like you pointed out, is going to be to bring that wedge back between China and Russia, drive Russia away from
Right.
China. So that possibly that's another deal that he's going to strike with them. But Manish Chand is with us. Manish, you cover the MEA very closely. You have your finger on the pulse of India's MEA. But tell us how the MEA is looking at these three very significant appointees who are literally going to be the go-to people for the next couple of years. Or as Robin was saying that, nothing is cast in stone when it comes to a Trump administration. But for the moment, we must believe that these are the three gentlemen who are going to be running, defense and national security in the US for the next couple of years.
So, Sandeep, the thing is that this is the Trump moment for India-US relations.
Yes.
Our biggest trump card, in fact, is Donald Trump himself.
Right.
And now he has complemented it with
Right.
his cabinet picks, who are well-known, India enthusiasts
Right.
and China hawks. So obviously, the buzz in the MEA is that India-US partnership is going to move on a higher trajectory.
Right.
We will have like-minded people. As you know, in the last days of the Biden administration,
Right.
because of their own human rights hawks and other elements,
Yes.
India-US partnership suffered a bit of strain.
Yes.
Because of the democratic fanaticism on the rights front, and you know what I'm talking about,
Right.
making a big issue out of Patwan Singh Kanoon and all those. There was a tendency to preach and sermonize.
Yes.
So in contrast to that, we have a pragmatic, transactional president, which is very
Yes.
good.
Yes.
This word is transactional,
Right.
whichever way you quote it.
Yes.
And number two, you have all these advisors. You name three of them, but
Yeah.
there is also Trump's pick for the United States ambassador to the United Nations.
Yes.
A woman who's known for a
Absolutely.
vociferous critique of China.
Of China,
So China
yes.
is not going to get an easy ride either
Right.
on the bilateral track or on the international arena. So what it means is that India, the China factor and Trump's overarching geopolitical strategy,
Yes.
containment of an aggressive China.
Containment
And
of an aggressive China. Yes, Manish Chand, indeed.
yeah,
And you played that line very well. A trump card for India, actually. And, who else but Donald Trump to actually be that trump card. And, of course, his team was that team that he's brought out, pack of surprises, all of them anti-China hawks. So Sri, as Robin was mentioning, the fact that Trump is a deal maker, essentially. Good cop, bad cop. He unleashes these three on China
Absolutely.
and strikes a deal with them. You think that's something that we could be looking for?
Absolutely, what we would be looking at is because, like Trump himself said, he's not looking for war.
Right.
But he wants to build pressure on China just the same.
Yes.
You
And
know,
he would
because-
certainly not want China to go for Taiwan, as it was.
Absolutely
They
not.
were looking at 2027 as a deadline, literally, for an invasion of Taiwan by China.
True. And now I think that's not an option at all for China now.
Right.
I think they would not want to risk that sort of a strategy.
Absolutely, yes.
Especially with Trump in the White House.
Right.
So, Sandeep, I think it's fair to say that we will also see economic measures. It's
Yes.
not just about, let's say, geopolitical or political pressure being put on China. We might definitely see tariffs also being imposed on Chinese goods.
Right.
Although, how much US can realistically put tariffs on China, because ultimately, don't forget, it's their consumers
Yes.
who will have to, bear the cost of it.
Right.
Unless you're able to get another supplier who can supply the same quality at the same price and not hurt US consumer interest.
Right.
So that is going to be a delicate act. But it's fair enough to say that China definitely comes under a whole lot of pressure
Yes.
compared to the previous administration.
Right. China is under a whole lot of pressure indeed, and that invasion of Taiwan possibly, Sri, would have to be postponed by a
Yes.
couple of years. if
Absolutely.
not, forever. But, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, we are talking of the last administration actually laying down a deadline that they expect Xi Jinping to make a move on Taiwan by the year 2027. You think that's now off the table because Donald Trump is in the White House in January next year? Or is that, given the fact that Trump doesn't go to war, that would actually embolden Xi Jinping to actually make a play for it, because he's got a very short, small window that seems to be rapidly closing? Ambassador Prabhu Dayal.
Well, frankly, where China is concerned, nothing goes off the table. It always remains a possibility. But of course, the Chinese take their time in deciding what they want to do.
Right.
But coming back to the US interest in India,
Yes.
let me mention that the deep state of the United States
Right.
has a great interest in fostering close relations with India.
Yes.
And what is the deep state? The deep state comprises certain non-elected officials, and this also includes the defense production establishment.
Right.
India is the world's largest importer of defense equipment.
Yes.
The United States is the world's largest manufacturer of defense equipment.
Right.
So the defense production establishment in the United States
Yes.
is very keen to have a good relationship with India, because it wants to be able to market its products in India. Now,
Right.
Biden was more amenable to the idea of transfer of technology,
Right.
because we have made it clear that we are buying equipment, but we ultimately want to manufacture it here. Make in India is our objective.
Yes.
Trump is a little difficult in that context.
Right.
He wants to export military hardware, but he's not so forthcoming when it comes to transfer of technology.
Yes.
So there will be a lot of negotiation that will have to be done
Absolutely,
if
yes.
we want to be able to manufacture whatever we import from the United States, if we want to ultimately manufacture it here. But the defense-related relationship is going to be a key factor in
Yes.
defining the next 4 years.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very important points there, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. The fact that defense has always been the cornerstone of the India-US partnership, especially in the last 2 decades. But now, what is really going to be the icing on the cake is whether the United States would actually go ahead with the transfer of technology which they promised under the Biden administration, or will President Trump extract another deal from us for that GE 414 engine that's currently held up. But Robin Sachdeva, you believe that Trump is going to actually use this opportunity with China to cut a couple of deals with Xi Jinping, because he likes to do this, big thing of, he's a showman basically. He likes to come in and say, hey, there was a problem over here. Biden created this mess, and now I've, with a few deft strokes of my pen, I've solved the problem. You think that's going to happen with when it comes to China?
I think so, yes. he will cut a deal, some kind of a deal. Of course, there's so many sectors of exchange. I mean, the whole semiconductor industry.
Yes.
That they will keep the ban and sanctions because
Right.
the war,
CHIPS Act, yes.
The CHIPS Act.
Right.
yeah, the race is to keep the dominance in the chip sector, AI and all.
Yes.
Okay, so that, and America wants to be the number one empire. It does not want to let number two become number one. That is the game, right? So he will strike some deals, sectoral. He did that, in his presidency towards the fag end. He signed a deal, I think, for $50 billion of trade deficit to be reduced by China by buying goods
Yes.
from the agri-commodities, which is the agri-heartland, which were the voters for him, apparently, right?
Yes, yes.
So that was political driven, but he would strike some such deal. He would raise tariffs. China would negotiate, but they would come to a point where they would have some kind of a deal. How much that affects the other geopolitical frictions, I don't know, because other frictions will continue. On that point of a couple of things, there was talk America first,
Yes.
or isolationism. America first is a two-sided coin.
Right.
It means America first inside the country,
Right.
and it also means America first globally.
Yes.
America is not going to abandon its leadership role, its economy, its dominance, etc. On the other hand, what America is looking to do is, okay, rearrange it, rejig it,
Yes.
right, and create a new, what I call as a new world matrix, in which America will be the sun. It wants the solar system to be rotating around it. So it will not be that, I would think, right? Secondly, how the India-US relations could be some kind of a bicycle if we get in tandem for some at least initiative. There'll be some frictions, but it could be seen as a bicycle.
Right.
How MEA is looking at it, Indian foreign policy, I think immediately, right now,
Yes.
we should be looking at the Ukraine peace deal.
Right.
And India and America already should be talking, I would assume,
Yes.
on this. See, Modi, when he went to Moscow the first time, he clearly said, we are on a new journey.
Yes.
Diplomacy, we will,
Now is not the time for war.
Not the time for war, and we will act proactively. That's what
Yes.
Modi said.
Right.
And after that, he met Zelensky,
Yes.
especially what for? Then he
Right.
went, of course, to the Quad, a meeting with Biden. Then he again met Zelensky in New York on sidelines of UN. What for?
Right.
Back, then he went to BRICS and met Kazan, Putin. To my mind, this was round one completed of Modi's one-point plan being stop the war. Now, with Trump in office, he wants the war stopped.
Right.
We are advocating for it. I think there should right now be huge synergy developing between the US and India
Yes.
and Russia towards some resolution within the coming weeks. It should be happening so fast, I would think.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's what
The
Trump
last-
gave a deadline of a couple of hours to end the war as soon as he took over. What, 24 hours? He's going to stop the war in 24
He
hours.
has said, sir, that he will
Yes.
stop the war before he takes the oath of office.
Correct.
Before 20th January. He'll
Right.
arrange it. So let's see, he's under deadline. So this could be a huge Modi-Trump, Modi playing a mediator or a moderator
Right.
of this evolving. This will be the round 2 going on, and round 3, and by round 4, hopefully, there'll be some framework which will develop.
Round 2, round 3, and Howdy Modi, say hello to Trump, and Shri, stop the war seems to be the mantra for both Trump and Modi. Modi
Absolutely.
says now is not the time for war. Trump says stop
And
the war.
that's right.
I'm the president who doesn't start wars. I stop them.
Correct.
So there's a lot of synergy happening between Modi and Trump, and I think
Absolutely.
we're going to see a lot more of that, playing out in the next couple of months. But see, T for Trump, but T for tariffs as well, and that's a sore point between India and the US. And
True.
Trump has accused us of protectionism, and he's going to do something about that.
Yeah.
You see that as potentially the only speed break between India and US, or are there others?
So, in terms of the larger strategic relationship between
Yes.
the two countries, I think that will definitely become your probably the biggest friction point.
Right.
Because one sentiment which Trump carries with him as he goes into the White House for the second time is that India has deliberately kept a lot of its markets closed.
Yes.
Which, they pushed the soybean market open. In China, they'll want to do that in a bigger fashion with India.
Agriculture,
They'll want
yes.
agriculture, dairy industry to be opened up.
Yes.
So that, I expect a
Right.
lot of pressure on India on that count.
Right.
But ultimately, Sandeep, we all know the geopolitics about give and take.
Right.
Do we want some strategic technology from the US?
Yes.
if then we have to make small concessions.
Right.
That's the reality of life.
That's the deal that we have
and
to do
given
with
Trump's nature, he's a deal maker. Unless you give him a good deal, he's not going to
Yes.
do a
Right.
deal with you.
Right.
Right. So I think it will have to be balanced very carefully.
Yes.
But I think underlying all this will be the fact that India is now an important ally for US,
Yes.
and they'll be more inclined to be a little soft on India.
Right.
That's my sense in terms of
Yes.
the larger game that US wants to achieve, which is
Right.
because India is nowhere close to China in terms of the economic size and the heft. Right. They are far ahead of us. So it'll be a while before India gets to that kind of a position where we can start challenging US's global economic hegemony.
Yes.
Apart from the political, hegemony. So I think we will have a good relationship with the Trump administration going forward.
Yes.
And I think our government has also been very pragmatic, not just on the war bit, but also
Yes.
in terms of picking the engagements and the fights carefully.
Yes.
So you will see that we are able to reach compromises and certain agreements without actually fracturing the relationship in any significant way.
Right, absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting, times ahead for India and US, particularly given the fact that this new cabinet that Trump is going to bring in, it's a gust of fresh air. The names that we've been talking about, Marco Rubio, Mike Waltz, and Pete Hegseth. But Manish, when is the next 2+2 dialogue between India and the United States? And, the first thing that's going to hit us is the age differential between the two sides. The fact that our ministers are, significantly older than the US appointees. Trump's cabinet, our average age, I calculated, is our ministers will be in their 70s,
Wow.
73 and above. And it's the Trump cabinet you just heard, the three key names are 49 is the average age of the three key names. But Manish, when is the next meeting between India and the United States? The 2+2
first of all,
dialogue.
let Trump be inaugurated. It's early days, but I would assume it will happen soon.
Right.
Because Trump wants to get a lot of things done with India.
Yes.
So I would assume that as early as probably July or something.
Right.
Or June, July or something. And mark you, this is also important to remember that India would be hosting the Quad Summit next year.
Yes.
And Donald Trump would be coming. You cannot have a Quad without one leader missing. So
Yes.
it's a given that Trump would be coming.
Right.
So I would imagine that India would be hosting Quad Summit somewhere around September or August or whenever,
Yes.
and the 2+2 meeting would happen before that.
Right.
So that is going to be the logical sequence of events. And before that, as you rightly mentioned earlier about the tariff and all those things,
Yes.
commerce, on trade, investment, things will start moving. So this is going to be a very result-oriented administration, what we are going to see,
Right.
business-focused. So a lot of those ideological dissonance which we saw
Yes.
earlier could disappear. And, when we are talking about the trajectory of the relationship,
Yes.
the important thing to bear in mind is the commitment to the rise of India.
Right.
I think this is the
Right.
project, the larger project, which enjoys robust bipartisan consensus.
Yes.
And I believe under Trump, that would acquire an added traction. And what things to watch out for us, I think we should not overplay the China bit too much,
Yes.
because as we know, is a deal maker, and we have forgotten to factor into account the X factor.
Yes.
By X factor, I mean Elon Musk. And Musk has a flourishing, thriving relationship
Right.
with China. He's a
Yes.
power behind the throne in many ways.
Yes.
And so you never know how it's going to play out.
Yes.
But whichever way it plays out, even though he does a tactical deal with China, India would be the favorite in
Yes,
many ways.
absolutely. India will be the favorite, Manish Chand, and given the fact that we will be the world's third largest economy in the term,
Right.
the second term of the Trump administration, tells you about how important the role that India is going to be playing in the Trump administration. And you just heard it from our experts here, the Team Trump, the advantages for India. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, Robin Sachdeva, Manish Chand, and of course, my colleague R Sridharan in the studio here with me. India's indigenous multi-barrel rocket launcher system, the Pinaka, has been attracting some global interest lately. The French army says it's evaluating the Pinaka for potential use. Why is this significant? And what's the rocket science behind it? Joining me are three experts who've watched this system very closely. In fact, they've played a very crucial role in inducting this system, developing it for the Indian military. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, former DG Artillery, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, and my friend Rahul Chaudhary, former CEO, Tata Power SED, the company that made the first Pinaka launchers for India. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus Show.
Thank you. Thank you.
25 years, just 10 regiments of Pinaka for the Indian Army. The French want it, the Armenians want it, but why is India so giving the Pinaka such stepmotherly treatment, General Ravi Shankar?
It's $1 million question. You should ask the Indian Army and some of the planners of the Indian Army, because originally we were supposed to have 22 regiments.
Yes.
And I'll come up front. A few short-sighted people felt that
Right.
we don't need that kind of firepower. This was at a time when we felt that wars won't take place or wars will be short and firepower like Pinaka will not be needed.
Oh, wars of attrition
then-
are a thing of the past, as one of your colleagues
past,
once told me.
Yeah. And then they all of a sudden, unilaterally, a few people in the army headquarters took this decision
Right.
to cut the number of Pinaka regiments from 22 to 10.
Yes.
But I think as things evolve, we will have to go back on that, and I'm sure we will go back to those 22 regiments in due course of time.
Right.
Because if you don't have firepower today, you're going to suffer, and that's what we have learned for the past 4 years.
Absolutely. If you don't have firepower, you're going to suffer, and that's what we've learned in the past couple of years. But General Kulkarni, as General Ravi Shankar mentioned, the fact that we had projected a requirement for 22 regiments of the Pinaka, we only have 10 regiments. And now we have the Russia-Ukraine war, which is possibly one of the longest battles of attrition post the Korean War, at least, where we've seen firepower being used on a full scale, like artillery and rockets and MBRLs and the US HIMARS and all of this coming back to haunt us. Do you believe that these interest in the legacy land systems that we thought were obsolete, like rocket systems and artillery, it's a direct fallout of the Russia-Ukraine war?
Thank you, Sandeep. You have experts on the panel and could be better. Let me tell you as an infantryman, what is it that I'm looking for? And the success of Pinaka was basically Kargil.
Yes.
When they came into the direct firing role and the way they hit.
Absolutely.
And the entire, the RT winning is attributed primarily, of course, to the infantry
Yes.
having captured, or having boots and grounds, but to the
Right.
artillery to make it possible. And
Yes.
that is where everything revolves around. And subsequently in Armenia, where Armenians also, you saw Azerbaijans, the way the Azerbaijans kept on sort of protesting as to why the Indians giving it to Armenia.
Yes.
Because that's where again the battle turned. Now in the Russia-Ukraine, you find again multi-barrel rocket
Yes.
launchers. The kind of HIMARS that were given that you referred to
Yes.
by the Americans to the Ukrainians, just 4 of them to begin with. And the number of targets that they took on and the kind of problems they put, the Russian problems, which is primarily when the HIMARS got included, you found that subsequently 40 more the Americans decided to give it to the Ukrainians.
Right.
So there is no denying the fact that this rocket system, which every rocket, imagine the speed, 5 times the speed of sound.
Yes.
5 times the speed of sound. That's the kind of thing. And almost the number of rockets that get fired in just about 44 seconds. So
Right.
all of it, and is very important for the infantry, because when your infantry wants to capture the ground, how
Yes.
does it capture the ground? Unless it is softened. And
Right.
softening is done by artillery.
By
a
artillery.
quick, rapid fire. And
Yes.
that is what demoralizes the enemy. And before they even decide to lift their heads up, that's
Yes.
where we are. And
Right.
that is where it's important.
That's where it's really important. And, thank you, General Kulkarni, for highlighting the fact that it was actually the Kargil war that saw the debut of the Pinaka, where the first time we saw the enemy, being shocked and awed by this indigenous system. But that was 25 years ago, and we're still at 10 regiments. And I'm going to ask Rahul Chaudhary this. He's a man who's been behind this system for the last 25 years or so. Rahul, tell us about why it's taken us so long to realize the Pinaka, the importance of the Pinaka rocket system. I recall you telling me this about a decade ago, that the Pinaka was one of the few systems that were completely indigenous, indigenously designed, developed and manufactured. And if we wanted to export it, we didn't need to look at a second or a third country for permissions. Rahul.
Look, can I narrate a story to you?
Yes, absolutely, Rahul. If it's an interesting one, we are all ears.
This is the year 2009, 8 or 9. There is an ADG artillery,
Yes,
and we are facing a problem because of the Tatra truck controversy
Yes.
on Pinaka.
right,
The answer was that let's try and do and develop something on a Tata truck,
right,
6x6, and try and move this damn thing forward. Obviously, this was not a DRDO funded project, but I put my money onto it.
right,
We created the Pinaka,
right,
and one of the things which I, unfortunately, having been trained in multinationals,
right,
I look at a systems approach.
yes,
And when I studied Pinaka compared to the systems and HIMARS was just coming in,
yes,
one of the things I realized was how antiquated the loading system of the rockets was.
right,
I mean, it's physically you are just for 45 minutes you need to load the pods,
right,
and HIMARS did it in less than 2.5 minutes.
right,
So, like an idiot, I said, okay, I will develop a crane.
right,
We were the launcher manufacturers, and there was a crane required, which was being brought from the OEM called PEML,
Right.
and they were getting it from Tractors India, and it was just a crane.
right,
I went there, I had a discussion with the ADG, and he said, okay, try and get this one forward. At that point of time, I thought that we are creating a solution which makes sense, and therefore it will be accepted. But I did not realize the fact that I was not the AHSP of Pinaka.
right,
AHSP of Pinaka was the DGQA.
Right.
Because that is how that goddamn thing works.
Yes.
If you are an Indian company, even if you are the OEM, you are not the DG.
right,
And second thing is, because it was a repeat order, nothing could be changed. The next two regiments were a repeat order of the first two regiments, therefore nothing can be changed. And because nothing can be changed, you have to go with the old kind of everything old.
The specifications are the old specs.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Now,
No deviation from
unfortunately, at that time, the gentleman had
Yes.
moved out of the artillery headquarters,
Right,
with whom I had done the first discussion and brought in, and at the end of the day, we were a commercial company. I said, "Arey order aa raha hai yaar, pakdo kisi tarah."
right, right,
The second thing I also realized was that the most critical piece in artillery, with all said and done, is the INS,
Yes.
Inertial Navigation System, and
Right.
Pinaka has a French one called the Sigma 30.
right,
If this has to become a global supply chain piece,
yes,
French do not sell in the world, Americans do.
right,
And if we have to do that, I have to find a way of bringing in the American system, which
Right.
was which was from Honeywell,
right,
and I started working on that. I started working on that with ARD. I started working on that with the armed forces, and we got to a stage where, with American, given that I had a reputation that I was very soft on America,
right,
and Americans liked me, I was able to twist their arm and not only get the
right,
technology transfer commitments, which was that, but also capital goods, which is sidereal table, which is something which is very, very difficult to get out of the Americans. Unfortunately, in India, we don't understand military-industrial complex.
Right.
And the most critical piece is the capital goods.
Right.
If you do not have access on capital goods and somebody controls those capital goods, you will never be able to make this whole damn
Yes.
thing.
Yes. Absolutely. So, Rahul.
Give me half a minute more,
Yes,
and
yes.
I will tell you another the conclusion part of this story.
Right.
Even after losing that deal, we still upgraded the Pinaka and
Right.
wanted to give the next two regiments which were coming in with a modern Pinaka, which would have then be easily upgraded to the.
Right, right.
And we were losing about 2 crores of rupees in doing that.
Right.
It was agreed with the then DG artillery that we will do it free of cost.
Right.
But unfortunately, the DG moved out, and the next person who came said, "No, I do not want anything."
Right.
And also, at that point of time, government had a scheme saying that OEMs can become their own certifying agencies for quality and
Right.
everything else.
Yes.
And I had created the entire database and everything else, and artillery had supported me that Pinaka would be the first system to go into production
Yes.
with our
With your specifications. Right. Yes.
implemented.
Right, absolutely. Rahul, your
Yes,
point is well
but-
made. Yes, yes. But I want to bring in General Ravi Shankar in on this. General Ravi Shankar, Rahul has made that point about how industry has really struggled with this system. We have proven this system 25 years back, and even now, even till date, induction is so slow. It's moving at a snail's pace. We are ordering regiments like 1 regiment, 2 regiments, 3 regiments. What is it that we need to do now? Given that there is so much of global interest in the system, the French are looking at it, the Armenians already have it, possibly several other countries could be looking at it. What is the kind of push that this system needs from the private sector, from defense industrial complex like Rahul Chaudhary, for instance, that can make the Pinaka more attractive for global armies of the world?
Yeah, look, Sandeep, I'd like to set a few issues in the correct perspective. First and foremost, Pinakas were not ready when Kargil happened. In fact, they were not deployed there.
Right.
Okay, let's get that straight. We used Grad BM-21 in direct firing role
Yes.
in Kargil. Okay,
Right.
and Bofors. The first Pinaka regiment was inducted in 2010.
Right.
Not before that. And I'm sure because I was the GOC of the RTD, which inducted that and did the first operational firing.
Right.
It is a very good piece of equipment, and I still feel it's one of the best equipment which we have brought out. That's the first thing. The second thing is, my association, I would like to put the thing in perspective because both General Kulkarni and Mr. Rahul Chaudhary are put in certain perspectives which are not exactly correct.
Right.
My association with this equipment, right, goes back to the time when it was initially conceived in 1988.
Right.
It was part of Prithvi and Pinaka, right? So the development took place a long time. It's not.
Right.
It's not that at the turn of the century that we had this equipment ready.
Right.
It was at
But
the
it was
turn of the
fired in
century
the
that-
Kargil war.
No,
General
wait.
Shankar, yes.
No, it was not. It was not.
Right.
It was not. It was not. It was not deployed at all in Kargil. So
Right.
we should not be wrong in what we tell anyone in public also.
Right.
Right? It wasn't at the turn of the century that L&T and Tatas were brought into the picture
Right.
as a conscious decision to get the private sector on board.
Yes.
Right? And then ARD continued with the development. It was not until 2005, 2006 that we started the first trials of the Pinaka.
Right. Right.
And around 2008, we did almost the final trials. And the first set of operational equipment entered in 2010.
Right.
And I'm very clear about it because I did the first firing of
Right.
operationalization. And that was for the first 2 regiments. Each one regiment by Tatas and one
Yes.
regiment by L&T.
Right, right.
And all these were mounted on the Tatra trucks.
Yes.
Okay. And like what Mr. Rahul Chaudhary said, for the 2nd and the 3rd regiment, it was a repeat order.
Right.
Now, if it is a repeat order, it has to be the same configuration. This was the time when the Tatra scandal broke out.
Yes, yes.
And we tried our best to change the mount.
Right.
And it was bureaucratically not acceptable, nor was it politically acceptable that you today, midstream, change the configuration of the vehicle,
Yes.
get a new vehicle from somewhere and put everything together, right? And it didn't go through. Ultimately, the 2nd and the 3rd regiment were ordered, I mean, the 3rd and the 4th regiment were ordered
Right.
only when the ban on the Tatras were lifted. And then we have put in an order for 6 regiments.
Yes.
It's not 1 by 1, 6 regiments for 10. Originally, the whole story was first get 2 regiments, then
Yes.
2 regiments, and then for each plan, we were to get 6 regiments each.
Right, right. Absolutely.
And
So
like I told you
incremental
earlier,
addition. General Shankar,
yeah,
I'm sorry
it is
we are
not-
running out of time, but if you could just
Yeah.
give us the big picture about the pushing it for defense exports, which is what
Yeah.
we're looking at. How do you make it more attractive now for the foreign defense market?
Look, you don't have to make this more attractive than what it is because it's a damn good piece of equipment.
Right.
And further, initially when we conceived this equipment, it had
Yes.
just about 40 kilometers of range.
Yes.
Today, the guided Pinaka has 80 kilometers of range, and
Right.
it is absolutely on par with
Right.
the what's that, HIMARS,
Right.
right? It's there, and everyone wants it for that reason.
It's
only.
there. I'm going to
And
bring
it
in, I'm afraid, General Ravi Shankar, we're completely out of time. I'm going to bring in General Kulkarni for closing comments here. General Kulkarni, you just heard it from General Ravi Shankar, the man who has been behind the project since 1988, and he set a number of things right. We'll come back to him on this point in a later show, but for now, just tell us the progress that the Pinaka has made. From 40 kilometers has gone to 80, and there are enhanced rockets of over 100 kilometers. What do you see that needs to be done now to really push this system to, put it on par with, say, the HIMARS, which is like a calling card for the American MIC? General Kulkarni.
Yeah, Sandeep, just like what is a precision guided, basically it's like HIMARS has 69, it
Yes.
goes down to 150, 300, 400 plus
Yes.
kilometers. Similarly, this one, like what Jal Shankar said, 38 to begin with, then moved on to 69, now wanting to move to 100, thereafter to
Right.
120 kilometers, and then subsequently up to 300 kilometers as it goes by. All this does help. Like
Right.
what is absolutely right when he talks about Kargil, but it is the grads which allowed us that this multiple barrel
Right.
launcher, these are ones that can be a game changer.
Yes.
And that the way the kind of rockets are fired, just imagine in 44 seconds, 12 rockets being fired. It's
Yes.
a huge thing. It's a big thing. It demoralizes the enemy. It
Right.
totally pulverizes. And now
Right.
with 1,000
Okay.
meters, the 800 meters, that's the kind of an area that it
Yes.
actually pulverizes. That is what counts the most.
Absolutely.
And he's absolutely right. I go along
Yes.
with Shankar.
General Kulkarni, sorry, we're completely out of time here, but we are just talking about how Pinaka has become India's export firepower trump card. Of course, this is the system that's, except for a couple of components, is primarily indigenously designed, developed and manufactured, and this has attracted great interest from global armies, and who knows, this could be India's calling card for India's indigenously designed, developed and manufactured system. Thank you very much for joining us, Generals Kulkarni, General Ravi Shankar, and of course my friend Rahul Roy Chaudhary.